For this demonstration, I'm going to be using a pencil and a multi-liner pen, smooth translucent marker paper. I'm also using a set of toner gray alcohol markers ranging from shades 1 to 6. First, I'm going to start drawing the top side of my box with lines converging towards the right vanishing point and then lines converging towards the left vanishing point. Then I'll start drawing the height of my box, which are vertical lines going straight up and down, before drawing the bottom edge of my box, which also converge to the left and right vanishing points. Now we're going to construct a really simple shadow. I'm just drawing this little light bulb here for visual representation. You do not have to draw this little light bulb. Of the three corners, we're going to pick the front, the side, and then the back corner that we can't really see. So if we draw through the box, we can find the ground plane and the bottom corner and draw a horizontal line from there. These three horizontal lines should be parallel to each other. Then I'm going to draw three diagonal lines that are parallel from my determined light source. So this can be at any angle, just as long as the three lines are parallel and are coming from the top corner of the box and intersecting with that horizontal line we drew earlier. So just to clarify, each edge of the box is treated like a 90-degree triangle with the base being parallel to each other, as well as the hypotenuse being parallel to each other. Now, wherever that light source angle intersects with that horizontal line, we can then connect the dots and construct our simple shadow. So let's do it again. I'm going to draw the box a little bit taller, but construct it the same exact way we did our first one, with the top plane tapering towards either vanishing point that it's pointing to, the verticals being completely straight up and down for the height of the box, and the bottom edges of the box also converging and tapering towards that vanishing point. Then I'm going to draw my three horizontal parallel lines from the base three corners and determine the length of my shadow. And just as a reminder, these three horizontal lines create three right angles that are all parallel to each other. Now I'm going to determine the height of my shadow by drawing a diagonal line that intersects with the horizontal line at the bottom. So it's going to start from the top corner of the box and intersect with the horizontal line at the base. Keeping in mind that these diagonal lines are parallel to each other. Then at each intersection, you're going to connect the dots and finish drawing your shadow. So before we shade with markers, we can practice a little bit with pencil. Assuming that the cube is white, our shadow is probably going to be our darkest value. Then our next darkest value will probably be the wall facing the farthest away from the light source. One more thing we can include is ambient occlusion, or an ambient shadow, which is an area that light absolutely cannot penetrate. So that's going to be the bottom edge of this box, farthest away from the light source where it touches the ground. The ambient shadow should be really, really dark, darker than your normal shadow. One more thing to consider when shading with pencil is to shade or hatch in perspective. So that's either going vertically up and down or towards the vanishing points. That way we can maintain the three-dimensional illusion of our drawing. Shading haphazardly can break the immersion and make our drawings feel really flat. Alright, third time's the charm. You guys sick of boxes yet? So we're going to draw it one more time. We're finally going to start doing markers. So I'm going to construct this box the same way that I had explained in the earlier part of this video, and I'm going to use pencil just so that I have some peace of mind here. Since we're not using a grid, I'm going to just try to taper these lines as best as I can to give that illusion of perspective. So that means all the lines going to the right vanishing point are tapering towards each other. That means the top plane of the box and the bottom plane of the box. And the same for the left side as well. You can see with my hand motions, I'm showing you where the lines are tapering. So that's going to be across the front side of the box, the top, and all the verticals are going up and down. So just as a reminder, all the verticals go straight up and down. There is no angle to them. Okay, so now I'm going to plot my shadow very quickly, and then we can start shading with marker. After cleaning up my lines with a micron, I'll start shading the top side of my box with the lightest value, which is T1. I completely saturate the paper with marker as to create an even tone. Alcohol markers dry fairly quickly and can look streaky if an uneven layer is applied, so don't be afraid to be a little heavy-handed. Next, I'll go a step down using my T3 marker and shade in the second lightest side of my box, making sure to saturate and evenly cover the surface with marker. I skipped T2 and used T3 to show a little bit more contrast between the two sides. If I had used T2, the values would not be contrasting enough and my box could end up looking like one gray shape. Once again, skipping T4, I used shade T5 to fill in the darkest side of my box and show contrast between the three sides. Being careful not to bleed into my other values, I carefully saturate the area with marker. Contrary to what we've been doing with the box, I use one step down with marker T6 to fill in the shadow. The darker markers tend to get dark pretty quick, and we can build the value with multiple layers and even saturation. When it comes to shading with markers, sometimes it's safer to go with a lighter value since we can darken it a step down. We can't really lighten dark marker ink once it's on paper, so shade wisely. So since I already made a video going over how to render and draw a cube, I'm just going to whiz through that really quickly. But the only difference here this time is I've darkened the edges with a black color pencil. I've also darkened parts of the shadow and the ambient occlusion using the pencil to kind of clean up the rendering a little bit. When approaching the cylinder, I like to saturate the entire object with the lightest marker value, so I'm going in with a T1 marker. I leave just a little edge off the left side of the cylinder where my light source is coming from to showcase the highlight. You'll notice that with each subsequent stroke of the marker, you can see the streaks layering on top of each other. We can use this effect to our advantage when we blend the darker values. The core shadow of a cylinder starts where the cast shadow starts on the ground plane. This is where I'll build up the values moving between T3, T4, and blending back with T2 or T1. While the edges are still wet, I'll quickly go in with a lighter marker to blend out the darker values. The streaky effect of the marker from layering on top can give us enough indication of the value shift. I'll go in with a darker marker for the shadows and completely saturate until it's one even value. Afterwards, I'll touch up and finish the rendering with a black color pencil. I gently outline the exterior of the shape and darken the ambient shadow at the base of the object. I'll also clean up and sharpen the edges of the shadow and touch up the core shadow to finish it off. Next, we have the cone. Plotting the shadow for a cone is pretty easy. You determine the length of the shadow starting from the center of the cone's base to the ground plane, and then wherever it intersects based off of your desired light source direction from the top of the cone. Then we can connect the shadow together from the outside edge of the cone to the end of the shadow. The shape should be a triangle projected on the ground in perspective. Rendering the cone is pretty similar to the cylinder. The only difference is that it doesn't have a flat top plane, rather it tapers to a point. The principle remains the same. The core shadow is where the cast shadow begins from the base of the cone. The marker techniques applied are the same as the cylinder. Work from your lightest marker value and work slowly into your darker values. Like I had mentioned before, you can always darken your values, but never really the opposite on paper. After blending out the core shadow and finishing the cast shadow on the ground, I cleaned up the edges using a black color pencil along with a white acrylic paint marker to bring out the highlight on the left side. I also use it to clean up the messy marker application that I did on the right side. Don't forget your ambient occlusion on the bottom, and you've got your cone. Last but not least, we have our sphere, which is arguably the trickiest one. Plotting a quick shadow for a sphere is pretty easy. It's just an ellipse in perspective from the base of the object. Depending on where the light source is coming from, that'll determine the size and placement of our cast shadow. I decided the light source would be at a slight angle from the top left. Since the white of our paper is going to be the brightest value, I'll start by blocking out the highlight and saturating the rest of the sphere with the lightest marker value, T0. Then I'll layer T1 from the back, following the contour of the sphere. Since we're shading in perspective, it's important that your marker strokes are going in the direction of the form changes. Then I'll darken the core shadow of the sphere using T3 and then switch back and forth from T0 and T1 to blend out this value change. I'll go back and slowly darken that core shadow up to T5 and blend out again with a lighter marker while the ink is still wet. Filling in the shadow is the same as always. I'll build up the darker values until it's evenly saturated before going in with a black color pencil to sharpen the edges and deepen the ambient occlusion. Keep in mind, the sphere is going to have some bounce light from the ground, which is why the back of the sphere is lightened compared to the core shadow. And that's how I approach rendering these 4 shapes with markers. If you would like to see more videos like this, leave a comment and subscribe for more.